You know the drill. Thank you so much. Welcome, Mirella.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming all over. And we have three excellent panelists. I want to introduce Aurimas Gričiūnas. Aurimas has over a decade of experience in various data-related fields, including data analytics, data science, machine learning, data engineering, cloud engineering. It goes on and on. And currently, he leads and focuses on data and infrastructure projects. And he's the chief product officer at Neptune AI. And he's also a top voice on LinkedIn with, I think, over 100,000 followers. And also his newsletter, if you are not subscribed to Swirl AI newsletter, together with another 25,000 people, please go have a read. Aurimas, welcome. And
thank you for the intro.
Thank you, Aurimas. And you already know another two panelists, so please welcome back Sanchit Juneja.
So I can introduce Dr.
Yes.
Kiziltan is with Nitera Ventures. What they do is either co-build companies together with the founders or decide in which type of hard companies to invest in. And the hard part comes either from a heavily regulated environment. So for example, product people help Nitera with medical device registration app. So the medical device was that it was an app for pregnant women who develop diabetes. It's a condition affecting quite a lot of people over a short amount of time. And it was meant to also connect to a device. And especially in Europe, the moment you mention a condition like I'm pregnant and another one like diabetes, it's the whole hell of GDPR2 and other things that come in. And that's also the part of these ventures that they're building is not an e-commerce play or like something frivolous, is more hard, the hard part of hardware and regulated type of products. So I hope I did that.
Thanks for the agile improvisation.
I did an improv course. It was the best the best learning and development use of my budget. So I'm very happy for this. How many of you people here are product managers or product owners or even business analysts? Wow, super nice. Very happy to see such a large majority. If you're wondering about my accent, I'm originally from Romania and based in Berlin since 10 years. Romania is this country known for vampires and like sometimes some weird stuff. Very happy to be here. Love the city. And I want you to all to give a hands of applause for Janet. She had an amazing talk. Is Janet still around? And this is also a great segue into our panel because she had a very good point on companies now saying we do AI or Gen AI, and then the question is, but for what? Or what are you solving with this? And I think we have also like very good expertise here for Kiziltan that represents the early stage side of building a company, so the 0 to 1. Sanchit is with booking, which is already 1 to N already. And Aurimas is more on the emerging technology part. So maybe for people to have a bit more context on exactly what you're working on, since I've spent a bit more time introducing Kiziltan, how about you, Sanchit? Which side of product are you handling at Booking, and what are your current challenges for which you're applying machine learning or Gen AI specifically?
For sure. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I'm the director product for Big Data and ML platform. Booking.com has a very mature product ecosystem. Right? So because Booking has been in the industry for around 30 years, what we do firstly is we don't look at ML or AI and data separately, right? One begets the other. You cannot have a proper good ML model or a good Gen AI model. And frankly, Gen AI is basically SOTA ML. You can hear me, right? Yeah, state-of-the-art ML, right? So there are some bells and whistles to Gen AI, but a lot of the things that are standardized in the industry is something that we follow. So for any machine learning ecosystem, you have ops layer. So I think if most of you are around developers, you know anything becomes complicated enough, Developers like to put an ops layer on top of it, right? So
That's such a good observation.
exactly. So dev had DevOps, security has SecOps, and ML has MLOps, right? And then you have people building on top of MLOps. MLOps is the factory floor for machine learning, and I manage the MLOps part of the booking ecosystem and the big data part. And then we have ML practitioners embedded into our product ecosystem that build on top of this ML factory, right? That is one way my team is involved. A lot of big tech companies also have something called an center of excellence for machine learning, which is the applicative ML. What they try to do is try to create platforms on the application side. So let's say fraud as a platform or ranking as a platform. So booking invests into that as well. And I think a lot of big tech companies invest in that. And that goes for Meta or Uber or anything else.
Good. That's a very good info. So your and product managers also complicate things in design because you have design ops and you have product ops. So everything ops.
Exactly.
So you're to some degree on the platform side, but more like platform services.
Yeah, platforms. Yeah, platform services.
Cool. So I also agree with the part about data because if a lot of people forget that this is just a fundamental thing to get started, and not having it separated in 100 data lakes and having it cleaned up and ready to process, and in some cases also sanitized of sensitive info or filled in with synthetic data when you have gaps so that it doesn't come out weird. So this is like could be a completely separate panel. But I want to give also Orimas a chance to introduce himself, and then we go into the questions.
Of course. So I am currently part of two ventures. So one of them is Neptune AI, where I'm leading the product part. And at Neptune, we are building a machine learning experimentation platform for companies that are actually training their own machine learning models. And in the past year now, we are also collaborating with, I would say, partially collaborating with most of the biggest AI labs in the world who are training their own foundational models on which we are building the systems. And at Swirl AI, one part of it is the education part, of course, but we are also building Gen AI applications for companies and consulting on implementation, also doing hands-on. Historically, I also was part of machine learning platform teams as well as a leading one at some point in time. So I think that our background is pretty similar with Sanjit, actually.
Very cool. So I'll start with delivering on the title that we promised about ignoring the hype. What's like your top one or top three advice about this for companies, or at least for us as a service provider? We have sometimes customers coming to us that already started in after November 2022 when ChatGPT launched. They were usually B2B companies, usually venture funded, who were close to an exit or looking like what's the next step, and they would be saying, we need to jam this into our product because our valuation increases. And that has been like proven over and over again. And secondly, we have also a bit of pressure from our B2B customers because they say, well, your competitor is using it. So we were in this position of like figuring out something useful to do with this, knowing that the requirement was already set, that they wanted it for their valuation. And in some cases, they were right. Some of the companies that we helped already had an exit. So what would you say out of this is complete hype and people should immediately ignore it? If someone comes in with that idea, you walk out of the room politely, type of advice.
Okay. I think I can relate to this in two different perspectives. One is the big enterprise. Generally, the way I see it, the adoption of new technologies in big companies is slower than those which are smaller. And to that regard, AI definitely is intriguing to follow up. However, the investment decisions and what to implement creates a long cycle of decision making. And I think with regard to what happened in the last 12 months with the GPT-3, then GPT-4, GPT 4.0, then the hallucination hub, then the investors backing off from the AI. So the hype itself is faster than the corporate decision-making process. So this makes things even much slower. So I think in the last, given the perspective of last 1 year or so, there is a shift from moving away generative AI using the body text and creating some sort of context out of that is shifting towards using more applied AI in the sense of making information out of numbers, or using the Gen AI in text in very secure norms. So I think the slowness of the corporate itself kind of mitigated the risk of making wrong investments and kind of found what is the problem to solve, or what is the most safe problem to solve. Because if you make it as a big enterprise, if you are an early adopter and if you fail, you also suffer brand reputation issues. So I think
I mean, Microsoft did it already, right? But there were already a few embarrassing releases.
exactly
And
so.
Google's Gemini also is still
So
mediocre at best now.
Exactly. So these reflect on the CTOs, CIOs to make decisions
And the
and
stock
to
price.
persuade their leadership. And on the startup side of things, I think I already mentioned about this investor implication as well, that they also kind of strip themselves of the hype. And for the startups, the tool sets are helpful as a team member, as one of our speakers have put it, and it's very helpful for delivering the initial versions of what they're trying to build.
Makes sense. From our point of view, we look at the Gen AI ecosystem in two areas. There's an internal productivity space where Gen AI is already proving itself. We are using Cody or any other code auto copilot. I last coded 12 years back and I could code again. So they are revolutionary in sense. External facing, customer facing products, especially in an increasingly regulated market, is something that we have to be very circumspect about. So there is EU AI Act. I think we are all in EU, but that's not the only act. India has its own act. China has its own act. California has its own act. So customer facing acts and the kind of use cases is still a discovery, and I think most of us are in that discovery.
All right, because you especially operate a product in how many markets currently?
I think nearly 100 plus countries.
So all these AI acts are affecting you
Yep.
everywhere.
We are a global company, so all these acts are affecting us. And obviously, if you befoul these acts, you have millions of dollars of fine. If you're a global tech company, you have to be cognizant of that.
So then how would you, what's your mnemonic for calling bullshit when, let's say, a PM or someone comes in and says, oh, we should do this and that, versus weighing the risks?
We have a governance process in-house. So one of the things that come attached to data and AI is data and AI governance. So not everything, let's say, I just want to change this button, let's use AI. Those kind of things are avoided. We have an internal funneling process where we use a responsible AI framework. It's a very public framework where we funnel things before they come to productionizing stage. So a lot of bullshit is filtered out.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, so my take is that, again, we need to split the users of Gen AI into kind of two categories, right? So enterprises and startups. So enterprises are always lagging behind. So the clients, not the clients, but the users of Gen AI technologies that I have talked with from enterprise level size, they already have made the huge investments, let's say, in the chatbots, into internal RAG systems. the estimate is that the actual business value that will be properly realized might be coming in 5 years, right? And that means that it will kind of return on the investment that has been already made. And internally in these companies, there are also two types kind of applications, internal facing and external facing. And internal facing are probably currently the biggest levers. And there are also two improvements that can be achieved by these systems. So one is that you actually make your workforce more efficient, even with chatbots, internal RAG chatbots, so you can get the information faster. But also it unlocks some new type of work that the actual workers can do, because if you previously needed an analyst to answer, let's say, your questions from all of the internal data that you have, now you can also tap into some internal agents for that purpose. So it's twofold: efficiency plus new things that people can actually do. Now, when it comes to startup world, I think we're kind of past the hype already a little bit, because the companies that are now newly created, let's say in Silicon Valley, we need to use these newest technologies. So agents are coming, everyone is saying. And I think this is a good example, and we should create those agents, because startups building today should build technology that will be viable in, let's say, 2 years or 3 years, because we are disrupting the market. So while enterprises will take, let's say, a few years to catch up, I think startups have to be innovating today. And the initial question was, what would be the idea that I would say you're crazy if you want to implement in a enterprise? I would say forget about autonomous agents. That's far away. Don't even think about it.
Cool. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. And what we've noticed also when helping some clients is that you need to have a super strong business case, especially if you're tapping into OpenAI or Claude or anything external, right? Each hit costs you. So then you end up with tactics of, okay, we put this capability behind the login screen, so at least the user is motivated enough to log in, and we avoid some of the bots and so on. But then even that is not enough, right? You need to prove that it works, and after that, look on how can you in-house the model. Can you use something self-hosted? Can you do something else so that the costs really don't end up outweighing the benefits? Because this is something we noticed with some clients. They got excited about that, and then the cost would just like skyrocket, especially if you're a high traffic platform of any kind, and you add that, and each call to a third party provider costs you. And there are simple things. So to give you an order of magnitude, at one client, there was optimization of sending SMS messages, and overall for the whole group, that was about 5 million per year saving. So imagine, like, on the opposite side, if you don't have this optimized, how terrible it can be. And then the question is, how do you then figure out if it's worth the cost? Because at least with the current trend is most companies look for a very fast ROI and look to product to justify not only the cost of themselves and the dev team, but also of every ancillary cost they generate whenever they decide that this is worth building. Yeah.
Cool. So again, going back to the principles, right? When you say, okay, how is it worth the cost? What are you trying to achieve? What's your North Star metric? If you're trying to do an ROI positive, let's say making money, then just keep that at the back of the mind. Then Gen AI moves into the solution space, not from the product space. You can solve it easier than just solve it without Gen AI. But let's say if you want to showcase to the market that, okay, we are on the cutting edge of Gen AI, then your North Star metric is generating the buzz. And you're showcasing that we have the know-how to adapt for the next 5 years. Then you're very well served. So as long as you're keeping the North Star metric in the back of your mind, I think you can just optimize on that metric.
All right. So this could be how some companies build apps for Apple's new Vision Pro, but then no one has that. Almost like very few people bought that, and very few people are likely to use the apps, but they just wanted to show that they can, or build a relationship with Apple or so on. Yeah, that's fair enough. One last question before we dive into taking questions from the audience. Has this impacted the way you hire people?
The way you hire people. So
Job market impact, 'cause, I'm assuming here, is someone openly looking for a role? Because I know not openly it's all right.
okay, so from my side, there are a few few impacts on how companies are hiring now, right? One is there is a smaller need for the amount of engineers that you previously needed, which is natural. Then some functions are cut, but not cut, but let's say cut in half or cut in by 40%. But usually it's not because it was cut due to the introduction of, let's say, chatbots and similar technologies, but rather something happened before, like a pandemic, and we had to reduce our workforce, and then we simply did not return to the levels we kind of had before because we realized that AI can do it cheaper and better. So that's what I see.
Okay, so that's a fair point. So the compounding effect of having a pandemic and then a bit of a downturn, and then this new tech showing some promise. Sanjit?
From our point of view, not so much. So see, the Gen AI can do three things right now. You can directly do an API hit, the direct inference. You can do some bells and whistles on RAG. And finally, if you have the money for it, fine tune, right? So for the first part, we started thinking about prompt engineering, people who can just optimize on the prompt. So that's a totally a greenfield area. I think everybody's just trying to figure out what will happen there. The second part, RAG, is just backend engineering with a twist, so nothing much there. And fine tuning obviously requires deep ML knowledge. But either way, we were already well versed in ML. So again, right, Gen AI is SOTA ML. It's new architecture, it's transformers, diffusers. So even in that aspect, we were already thinking in that aspect, so we were well served.
Yeah. So on the startup founding perspective or venture building perspective, I think it's more important to set the outcomes. That is, if you build without the Gen AI, it's totally fine. It's all about the efficiency of the operations, just like you mentioned. And on the already existing workforce you have, I think upskilling is important, so that that's some training budget goes to these new skills that the devs do not contain at this point. And then when it comes to that point where a Gen AI could be useful, you can use that upskill force and then put them in place and make them efficient. Yeah. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. Over to you all for questions. You can also pass on the mic, or you could stand up, raise hand if there are more people. All right, over in the back. Let's try to sit up so the crowd could also see you. Ah, yeah, sure. Even better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, like a torch in Olympic Games, something like that. Okay, my name is Ignas, and I want to ask a question about the legal part and all the legislations that would await us if AI would really become a new thing. Because who would be, facing the consequences? Lawsuits would happen if AI would do some, bad document decision, big mistake in bank, and so on and so forth.
So maybe I will take this. So there is already legislation at the EU level called EU AI Act. You can just go to EU Commission website, you will find out it's already going to be enforced. What I will summarize, and obviously I'm not an expert here, so I will defer to that act. But basically, what the act assumes is, let's say hypothetically, you are serving some models. You're serving at, let's say, a very large operational VLOP scale, right? You're supposed to share the models and what those models are doing to the EU government, so that any kind of bias, any kind of discrimination is something that they are aware of. Because of that, you get, if you are ever running an ML or AI application, certain amount of obligations come to you that you have to maintain data drift, deployment drift, configuration drift to a minimum. So there are certain technical aspects to it. I will really encourage you to just go out and read the UAI.
All right, next question. Who feels brave today? I know it's snowy and dark outside, and oh, there we are. Also in the same area, so you don't need to run that much with the mic.
Thank you for the panel. I just maybe built on the previous question. What are the capabilities currently or maybe in the near future in the companies who actually build on these big language models to, let's say, track back how the AI made certain decisions? For example, there is a certain outcome, there is some conflict, and there is a need, let's say, to check if all the rules were obeyed correctly, what inputs AI used to generate this unique and specific outcome. Is there such a capabilities at all? Thank you.
So I will give you an example, right? The very beauty of the tech ecosystem, we work for it. Let's say we enter into a new paradigm, then tooling ecosystem sprouts around it. So all of us were engineers at one point of time or are engineers, right? We know what observability is and monitoring is. Now data and ML has become big enough and the data and ML observability tooling has come out. There's tooling like Arise or Poria that does just ML observability. So just like you want to do a tracer bullet test on your systems, you can do a tracer bullet test on your ML application. And obviously, I'm not an engineer. I would defer to an ML engineer there. But if there's a need, there's about to be a tooling ecosystem out there. Or if it's not, it's a very good idea for a
Yeah, it's like there will be a SaaS tool ready to charge B2B companies for it.
Yeah, I can expand on this. So actually, these were one of the first, I guess, SaaS companies that spun up, machine learning infrastructure SaaS companies that spun up after all of this Gen AI boom started, the observability and evaluation space. And it's really, really hot. Like I think there are like 20 Gen AI observability platforms out there already. Just to name few, that would be Langsmith, Langfuse, Langtrace, Traceloop, Honeyhive, and similar. Like they are specifically meant for this shift of let's say Gen AI outputs, Gen AI output and regular software kind of combination, which is our Gen AI systems that we actually use. So yeah, it's tracing with some extra evaluation on top with some non-determinism in traces. Yeah.
Awesome. Go ahead.
And maybe I can add some insights from Web Summit last week in Lisbon. So there was this panel with regard to IP versus AI. And there was a remark that 40% of American economy is based on IP. So there is and all of these IP holders are lagging behind to claim legal pathways to fight back against the implementation of the AI, generative AI, and how IP will be regulated. So I think in the coming years we will see a comeback on this, and there will definitely be a tool or a service in the line of how to track back what AI used and how to manage that value stream. I think that this would be one thing in the line of consulting services as well as for productization. And the second one will be maybe we didn't mention, but it's an implication of the legal liabilities. That is the AI ethics. So I think that area, that domain will also be covered with tools as well as consulting services that will help the enterprise in making investment decisions on AI.
Very cool. Thank you all for your participations. Give a round of applause for our awesome panelists.